One of the first actions President Biden took upon taking office was to issue an executive order indefinitely pausing all new oil and gas leasing on public lands. This week, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham sent the president a letter asking for some relief on that front, although she stopped short of any direct ask. This is the governor's latest tightrope act between moving the state towards more renewable energy sources while not turning her back on the oil and gas industry, which is so important to the state's economy, as you know. Senator Feldman, what do you make of the governor's request?
Well, she's asking for an exemption. She's asking for an exemption, yet the pause that the president put on the oil and gas leasing had already expired on Monday. So the question was really kind of moot because it had already expired. But nonetheless, I think she really wanted to make a statement. That's what she was doing, rather than seeking real relief, which would be very difficult. Although now with Deb Haaland, it might be possible for certain specific exemptions, like Chaco Canyon, for example. But I think that, yes, she's trying to walk that line between the oil and gas industry and alternative energy and climate change, which she's very committed to. And her regulations and her regulatory policy has really proven that, with controls on methane gas emissions, right, and and other measures, the ETA, setting a goal of carbon neutrality. I think it's by 2045. And that's pretty aggressive. And I think she wants to let the Biden administration and the world know that we are pressing forward here and deserve some special consideration.
Merritt, interestingly, 55% of the state's wells and 63% of overall production are on federal lands. I mean, this is really a serious issue for New Mexico. Should we get special consideration here, given those numbers, those percentages?
Well, again, I think Senator Feldman's points about context, I don't know. It would be nice to get, of course, it would be nice for New Mexico to always get special consideration for everything. But the 60-day moratorium has sunset. It has not been renewed. And so it's not clear what the final policy will be. Also to be noted that the existing leases we have are set for 4 years. So it's not like production is stopping. Probably a larger impact on the Permian Basin has been some of the severe weather we've had.
Yeah,
that may be impacting oil prices.
Legit.
And
yep.
One of the most interesting bellwethers, if you will, to how there are 3 states that really have the most impact from fracking. It's Wyoming, New Mexico, and Alaska. And Alaska's 2 Republican senators voted to confirm Deb Haaland as Interior Secretary. So I think that's also an indicator that perhaps these Western oil-producing states are not as concerned about the Biden administration's fracking plan as the oil and gas industry makes it seem. I'm glad. I think it was good PR for the oil and gas industry. I think it's important that the leader of an oil-producing state in an economic crisis show that resolve, that she does support industry and she does understand that we cannot do without these revenues right now. I'm sure how meaningful it was.
Yeah. Senator Snyder, talk about numbers. Our Department of Finance Administration predicts an estimated loss of $709 million over the next 4 years if there is a 10% decline in our oil production levels. That's a lot of money. And in fact, let me give you the quote from our governor. Quote, "Financial losses of that magnitude could have real impacts on our ability to achieve major goals like universal access to early childhood education." There are serious issues here with this loss of money of this magnitude, isn't there?
Yes, there is. One of the things that concerns me a little bit is everybody keeps talking about, well, the oil and gas has all these leases in reserve. Well, they do, because you buy ahead. You don't wait till the day of and buy. But with that comes, when you're trying to get the oil and gas above ground, there are other kinds of leases that you have to have. And the moratorium, even though it has ended, did not exclude those kinds of leasing, like roads and access and things like that, into types of equipment that's needed. There were no exemptions for those things. So virtually it did stop what leases are held by the companies right now. I'm very concerned. I admire the governor for asking. As we've said, it's a day late and a dollar short, kind of. But I really am concerned long term about what we're going to do with oil and gas. And it's I would like to see us, and I always have, and this has nothing to do with our past president, but I think I would love to go back to seeing America totally independent, that we don't have to buy any more foreign oil or gas because we've got the reserves here. So I'm very concerned. And just as a side note to the fact that the two senators from Alaska voted, don't forget, look at their population and the number of indigenous constituents he has, as well as the oil and gas. So I think there was a little bit of play in that as to what the real decision was. So I leave this with one thing to say. I'm still very concerned about the future of oil and gas in New Mexico. And therefore, I'm concerned about education. I'm concerned about childcare, all of those things. So I have my concerns.
Senator Griego, meanwhile, the marketplace is speaking, meaning folks are pulling up and going to Texas because they have very little federal land there and they can drop a well wherever they want, basically. Is this a problem for us? I mean, when you really think about how much of our land mass is under federal control, it's a difficulty.
You know, I think that our dependence and on this industry, any credible research, including from the oil and gas industry, is there's a finite amount of time left for us to make this transition. And I know we're used to clinging like grim death to the industry. Nobody wants it to go away tomorrow. We realize there's got to be a reasonable transition period, but I think that all of us who are sort of apologists for the industry and so dependent on this for our state revenues, including things we care about, I think we're going to be on the wrong side of history, because I think there's a bigger existential crisis, which is climate change, which our kids and grandkids are going to be looking at us to solve. And nobody's saying shut those wells down tomorrow. I think what the tight wire that not just Governor Lujan Grisham, but the president and even Secretary-elect or Secretary Degnan, I guess she's secretary now,
Right.
Holland's going to have to walk, is how do you help with that transition, but also really push to make this transition quickly as possible, not just for the good of the planet, but because our economy is so incredibly dependent on these fluctuating revenues.
That's
and
right.
we have to bite the bullet and make the change. And so I hope that we will all have the courage to do that, regardless of party, regardless of region.
Appreciate that. That's the last word there. Thanks for having us, having these important conversations. Keep up with the show throughout the week on Facebook, Twitter, you know it as, and Instagram.